Today's episode is brought to you by my new book, Fuck Whales, Petty Essays from a Brilliant Mind. Available now at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere books are sold. Welcome to the best debate in the universe. Every debate in the universe, from Getting the Shocker to Hogan versus Gawker. With over 3 million downloads, I'm your host, Madcast. With me is the Deputy Cadet Moderator, Ron Babcock.
Hey.
And Junior Journalist, Taylor Nicolai.
Please don't make fun of me.
Welcome back to the show. Guys, huge show today. Exciting debate. One I've been looking forward to for a long time. It's about virtue signaling.
I have a lot of strong opinions about that.
Oh, do you really?
As soon as I figure out what it is.
Okay, well, that's good because I brought a definition. But first, I want to introduce our guest this week, Ryan Holiday. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, is this my second time, third time? I don't remember.
Second time, and I believe the last time you came on was when your last book came out. There was Ego is the Enemy. It's right there. Yeah, Ego is the Enemy.
All right.
Yeah, 2 books.
Yes.
2 appearances.
Done.
That was a great show, by the way.
Thank you.
That was the first time I actually created a video promo for one of our episodes.
Okay.
And you would not believe the amount of work I put into this fucking promo. I took your logo, the bust right there, and
yeah.
I forget the bust, but I actually had to do a Google image search.
You found it?
I found it.
Yeah.
And it was not even, I don't think it's the, who's it supposed to be, Aurelius?
I think it's Hadrian.
Yeah.
The Emperor Hadrian.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I found a bust version of it with his head on, and I had to take the head off and then 3D model it. I brought it into a 3D modeling program so I could rotate it during the promo. It was an insane amount of work, and I thought, I'll use this again. Never used it since.
Plus, you had to do all those visual effects work to your face.
I didn't even need to because I hit it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, no face.
Nice work.
Thank you. So, Ryan, your new book is out,
Yes.
Conspiracy. It's the Peter Thiel and Denton. Peter Thiel, Denton, and Hulk Hogan. It's the Gawker incident.
Yes.
Where Hulk Hogan sued Gawker Media.
Well, incident sort of undersells what was like a 9-year, $10 million conspiracy to wipe a media outlet off the planet. But yes.
Yeah.
That's what it's an insane story that somehow involves a billionaire, a professional wrestler, a gossip website, and then the president of the United States.
Yeah, this is an insane story,
yes.
And it's so fascinating. I just picked up the book, and you had a book signing in Los Angeles at Book Soup recently.
Yep.
Great bookstore. You guys should check it out. You have more book signings coming up at ryanholiday.net/events.
Yes.
You can see all the events. You got the next few are in San Francisco, right?
San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, Austin. There might be some others that I'm forgetting.
All over the map.
Yeah.
So, guys,
I go where they tell me.
Yeah. Well, this book is absolutely fascinating. I think the stories is fascinating. Can you speak about that anecdote about Machiavelli's book, the Livy, Delusions of Livy?
So in Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli talks about conspiracies, and he's saying that they're this sort of weapon of the people, that like sort of princes and kings wage war directly, but it's only sort of the average person that has to conspire, whether it's to kill the prince or overthrow the prince. And so I was trying to sort of look at, my theory is sort of, we have all these conspiracy theories in the world, right? Yeah. And almost none of them are true, or very few of them are true.
Right.
And then there are actual conspiracies. There are things that do happen, but we know very little about them, mostly because the people never admit to them. So this, to me, was like an actual conspiracy, and then the idea that it sort of lined up perfectly with Machiavelli. And I was in Peter Thiel's house and sort of snooping through his bookshelf, and he had this book on the shelf. So it sort of worked out perfectly. But yes, that the concept is like, oh, what do you do when you're, as powerful as a billionaire is? Like, a media outlet is almost always more powerful because they have these protections of the First Amendment. They have the direct access to a large audience. The media outlet's more powerful. So what do you do? And he sort of decides he's going to act in secret, and he funds these lawsuits against them and eventually bankrupts and destroys them.
And it was all because Peter Thiel was slighted because they outed him.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what your definition of a slight is. But in 2007, one of Gawker's websites runs an article that says Peter Thiel is totally gay, people. And it outs him as gay, a thing that he was open with to his, let's say, close friends and family, but didn't really believe was anyone's business. So this sort of most private thing about his life is exposed to everyone, and not just exposed, but done in a sort of very flippant, like, you're weird, why are you hiding this kind of way? Yeah. And so sort of smarting about this, and then sort of being introduced to a website that does this very regularly, he's like, I'm this shouldn't exist. I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah, wow, it's absolutely fascinating how, and then he's had that one singular goal and focus for over 9 years.
Yeah, so this happens in 2007.
Yeah.
He does not even act. He takes like the first real step in the conspiracy in April of 2011. So he waits for years just until he has the right opportunity, just simmering, just thinking. And then the whole Hogan case isn't filed until mid-October of 2012. And then it doesn't even get a verdict until March of 2016. And it's still being, sort of sorted out now. So like just the patience and...
I mean, it's nice to have a hobby.
Yeah. His hobby, it's an interesting hobby considering, he also is on the board of Facebook. He's the majority shareholder of like one of the largest defense companies in the world. Like you wouldn't think he would need a hobby, but in fact, apparently he does.
How long did you spend like working on this and researching everything?
About 18 months. So it was sort of an 18-month sprint. I mean, there was like 25,000 pages of legal documents. I mean, I had to interview all these people. It was way more, and I'm like truncating the events of what happened. I mean, there's so many absurd things happen in this story.
Was it like when you went into it, did it end up being way more crazy than like what you originally thought it was? Obviously you went into it because you're like, this is an interesting story to tell.
1,000 times more crazy. I mean, so for starters, so we know like Gawker runs this sex tape, and that's what they get sued over. But what we don't know is that, so the sex tape is, and this is where it gets really weird. The sex tape is Hulk Hogan having sex with his best friend's wife. His best friend being a radio DJ in Florida named Bubba the Love Sponge. His legal name, Bubba the Love Sponge. And it happens.
Actually, that doesn't, knowing radio DJs, that sounds pretty on point.
But wait, that's not the weird part. This is all publicly known. The weird part is that, so he records the tapes. It actually comes up in Bubba's divorce from his wife at some point, like who gets the sex tapes we recorded of our friends without their consent. And then, so Bubba gets them, he locks them in a drawer in his desk, and then they're stolen. And then they mysteriously appear on Gawker. So who steals them? So the working theory is that they were actually stolen by a rival DJ, a former employee of Bubba.
And what was his name?
I won't say because he was never convicted for this crime. But it's a silly name. Let's put it that way. It's a very ridiculous. It's
like Tubby the Love Rag or something.
Yeah,
it's like that. And so he steals it and leaks it, not to humiliate Hulk Hogan, but to hopefully dislodge his rival from the morning DJ slot.
Man, the morning DJ game in Florida is insane. It is like Game of Thrones level.
Yeah.
So this entire series of events that culminate in a $300 million media outlet being wiped from the planet is set in motion by two squabbling Florida DJs.
That's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things at the start of the book, you talked about how Nick Denton and Peter Thiel lived not too far from each other, right?
Yeah, now they happen to live not far from each other, and they're like shockingly similar. Like, so this epic conflict between these sort of two larger-than-life figures. They're both gay. They're both immigrants. They're sort of both libertarians. They're both like, they both like saying controversial things that piss people off. They're both super rich. It's like, you would think that they would be best friends, not mortal enemies. But in a way, it's I almost feel like we get in these intense conflicts with people who are not that dissimilar to us. It's never like our complete opposite that we're mad at. There's always something in them that makes us upset or something.
Mm-hmm. I have these two friends who are both like the chillest dudes, and that's how I describe each of them. They're both really chill. They just go with the flow. Everybody likes them.
You're talking about me, right?
No, Ron, not you. Although you're like a medium chill.
Yeah, I get fired up about like really lame things.
Yeah,
but...
like organizing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it's a travesty in this place. Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, the first time Ron came over, he's like, "You got so much dust."
It was so much dust, and the fact that you didn't think it was weird how much dust you had is what makes me even think it's more weird.
Well, I know
when
it's
you can
weird.
write your own name in the dust, like when you can leave notes for your roommate in the dust and have it be legible, that's too much dust.
That's pretty convenient. Saving time, idiot. So I have these two friends who are like just super chill, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna have them meet. This will be incredible. And the two chillest dudes, where I can't even imagine them being upset or not getting along with anyone. immediately started fighting. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
And they were fighting about, one was talking about how Burning Man is cool, and the other one's like, no, man, Burning Man became too corporate. And then they started arguing.
So they have the same opinion,
yeah.
right? Like that is the same opinion. One just likes it more now than the other, but they both inherently like Burning Man.
Yeah.
And I was argue who's more chill while being chill.
While being chill. And I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, the two chillest dudes I know are arguing, and I've never seen them argue outside of this conversation. And I'm like, oh my God, they are fighting to be the alpha slacker.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. No, a journalist I was talking to about the book, he said that it was the narcissism of small distinctions. And I was like, oh, that's a brilliant phrase. That's totally what it is. It's like, because that distinction is important only to you, because it's such an outsized part in you, that's why it's a big, but to you, you're like, you guys are exactly the same. I like you for the same reason.
Yeah.
They're like, no, but I part my hair this direction, not that direction. And it matters to them because that's their identity.
I did a show, and I think it was like Iowa City once, and there was like a river, and then across the street there's another city called like Rock City or something. I don't know, Rockport. And people in like Iowa City were like, man, you got to watch out for the people from Rockport. It's pretty crazy over there. I'm like, it's literally the same thing.
You're both shitty towns in Iowa.
One of you has a Chipotle, one doesn't. That's the only difference. It's like, you're all from Iowa. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
But people always try and throw up walls for those little distinctions.
Yeah.
So they could have their own little tribe.
I mean, I guess on a macro level, maybe you could make the case about, races with skin colors. Like, we're all pretty much the same thing, but they're a little bit browner than us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or like one of my grandfathers was an immigrant who didn't like immigrants, right? Like he came here, but it was like he's a different kind of immigrant. Like his identity was of this type of immigrant, and they were a different kind of immigrant. But to like me, I'm like, you all just came here in boats. Like, what's the big deal?
My uncle Mike was he fought in World War II, Battle of the Bulge, and he was Slovak, and he just almost fell out of his chair when he found out, his nephew was marrying, get this, an Irish woman. He couldn't wrap his head around. He was like, "You're marrying an Irish person," and it's like, "It's just another white girl. Like, it's not that big of a deal." But
was it a big slight against Slovaks? Like,
he only likes Slovaks, and that's it. Like, if you ain't Slovak, go Slovak or go home. That was his thing. That was where his level was.
Go Slovak or go Bach.
Go Bach.
Well, Maddox, is that why you hate beautiful geniuses?
Okay, you know what? Fuck you, Taylor. And by the way, we should give Taylor an introduction because. Taylor, I don't think you've been on this show for at least 50 or so episodes.
I was on, and we talked about Pokemon Go.
Oh, that's right. That was the week that Pokemon Go was popular, and
I said I said people were going to stop playing it very soon after, and I was exactly right.
Yeah, well, guess what? You're exactly wrong because I still play it every day, fuckface. And in fact, I have taken over a gym. All right, I've taken over a gym.
Congratulations.
Yeah, this sounded like a really cool episode that we should all listen to.
Yeah, do you actually want to make that public? Or?
Yeah, I know. Everyone makes fun of me.
Gym on Pokemon Go.
I was walking down the street, true story, and I was with 3 of my friends, and all 3 of them were giving me shit because I was training, right? But you train by carrying it with you, and it tracks your steps, and that you hatch Pokemon eggs that way. And I'm trying to explain it to them how cool it is, and all 3 of them are making fun of me. And then I noticed this girl walking ahead of us kind of starts to slow down and drift into our group. And she goes, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, I overheard. Are you playing Pokemon Go?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "I'm playing too." And I'm like, "Cool, I'm Team Instinct. What are you?" She goes, "I'm Team Instinct." And then her friends up ahead, 4 of them, turned around. They're like, "We're all playing." And we immediately hit it off, and we're like, "Dude, let's go take over this gym over here." And then we started bullying my friends, and we immediately turned into bullies. We started making fun of them. We were like, "You guys are fucking losers for not playing." I'm like, "Yeah, now these are my new friends."
And did you still keep in touch with them, or
no? But I know they're Pokemon in gyms because there's one in particular that's a region specific, and this girl's the only one in this region that has it. So
are the only people left Team Instinct?
Team Instinct has made a huge comeback. I can't believe we're having a Pokemon Go conversation.
Everyone picked Team Instinct at the beginning because it was the lame one, and now that's the only people left.
All right, what are you saying, Taylor? You better watch it. Junior journalist.
I'm sorry.
So Taylor, we should mention, is going to be doing the news at the end of the show. Ooh. But we should get to the debate this week. And Ryan, I want to...
Yeah, we got virtues to signal.
Yeah, we've got virtues to signal. Now, we talked about this before the show on how to even phrase this debate. Yeah. I thought, is virtue signaling bad? And what did you say? What did you suggest?
What's wrong with virtue signaling? What's the problem with it?
Okay, now the reason I think that that kind of puts the cart ahead of the horse because it implies...
But you could say it either way. You could be like, what's wrong with virtue signaling? Or you could say it like, the other way.
Okay. Well, I'm going to argue that there's nothing wrong with virtue signaling because I'm always the heel of the show and I always argue the other side of the debate. But your position is...
That it is sort of ruined society with sort of this pretensions of caring about other people, about caring about the world, about making the world a better place. And then it sort of swapped sort of our online personas for like real life action.
Great. Okay, well, that's the debate, guys. Let's hear everyone's buzzer before we continue. Here's mine. Ryan?
Trigger.
Okay, and Taylor? And Ron. There it is.
That one.
So if you hear a buzzer from anyone at this table, that means someone is disagreeing with someone else, someone wants to interject, point out a logical fallacy, or just make a contribution. So Ryan, as our guest this week, first stab at the debate, you think that this is...
Well, why don't you give don't we need a definition?
Yeah, I think we need that. I think everyone needs that.
Good point. Okay, so I brought in the virtue signaling definition. This is according to Google, and I think they did a pretty good job here. It says, the action or practice of publicly expressing opinions or sentiments intended to demonstrate one's good character or the moral correctness of one's position on a particular issue. And they gave an example here in a sentence. It says, it's noticeable how often virtue signaling consists of saying you hate things.
Yes.
And that actually comes from an article where the guy who coined, not coined, but popularized the phrase, said that actually. So what do you think is wrong with virtue signaling, Ryan?
So is it virtue signaling if I write that I hate how they charge extra for guacamole?
No.
Or is that just an opinion?
No, you would be saying like, I hate how they don't use like fair trade organic guacamole at Chipotle. Right? Because what you're saying
is
I
do hate that. Thank you.
Right. No. In fact, you don't, but you want to be seen as a person who cares about those. Like, you would have no ability to actually taste the difference between those two things. You would have, no one has asked your opinion about those things, but you're sort of, you're trying to show that you're not like sort of the common man who just gets whatever is cheapest or whatever is easiest, and instead you hold yourself to this higher ethical and moral standard than everyone
and being
else.
Very public about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you could argue that a good chunk of the alt-right is motivated by just sort of an intense reaction against virtue signaling and this sort of holier than thou, sort of political correct element of our culture. So the reason they're so deliberately sort of vulgar and offensive and terrible is that they feel, one, I think some of them genuinely feel that's more real, but two, they are just trying to stick it to these like fake assholes who are pretending to be better than everyone else.
Well, I think it seems like a lot of people feel if somebody virtue signals, the male feminist online, who goes on, I think sometimes people feel like they may be saying something that they believe, but then somebody else, for whatever reason, feels judged because of that. Well, like a lot of people feel judged when they're not necessarily being judged, but they're internalizing that as judgment.
Well, I think they are being judged when you're saying something that sort of when you're saying that you're better than other people, you're judging them, right? Mm-hmm. But I think like a good example of virtue signaling is we're seeing like with the Me Too movement in a lot of ways. It's sort of emblematic of this, but you're seeing a lot of people who sort of put themselves up as these sort of either male feminists or supporters of progressive causes or sort of, stewards of humanity. And then it turns out they're like raping people behind closed doors, right? Like you have a Matt Lauer who go on TV and talk about all the right things. And then he gets off air and he's like shutting the automatic door in his office so he can bend someone over his desk, right? Like that's not,
that must have been a weird conversation when he actually talked to like the office manager and was like, hey, can I get like a button on my desk,
like a
that
Bond
just
villain.
closes my door?
Yeah.
Like, or are you going to be a dick about it? Like, can I just get this installed?
Well, yeah. And his reasons have got to be like, oh, it's just to keep like security threats out. Or, I'm so tired after doing this show. I just love to be able to push the button and close the door.
So just to clarify, this is different than like Madcast. He's right publicly and then also is perfect behind closed doors.
That's correct. Thank you, Taylor.
No, I think sort of virtue signaling is kind of this like humble bragging. It's like nobody asked you, but you're letting people know how much better you are than them. And it's interesting. There's not like a diversity of positions expressed in virtue signaling, right? There's not a lot of Christian virtue signaling, I would say. It tends to be, I think there's sort of Christian preaching. But like virtue signaling, I would say predominantly online is sort of left of center. It's progressive. It's making sure you're sort of enforcing these rules of how good people are supposed to be.
Well, here's the thing about that, Ryan. I love virtue signaling.
Okay.
Fuck you!
I don't believe that for one second.
I fucking love. What's wrong with signaling your virtues? I want everyone to know how good I am all the time. In fact, that's where my whole Maddox crown and cape getup came from. Is after Hurricane Katrina, I made a donation to the Red Cross, and then I wanted everyone to know how good I am.
How much?
It was about $3,500.
Okay,
not bad.
That's
right?
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
in this instance, some heroes do wear capes.
Yeah, and that was me, and I was like, I'm the hero. And then I found a picture, an old painting from the Renaissance era of a pope, where a line of people were bending over to kiss his hand, and I thought and I photoshopped my face onto it, and I thought that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go around the nation and go on a hand kissing tour because I.
Except every time someone does it, you ejaculate, and you know that's a problem.
Wrong. I'm dry as the desert down there. Anyway, I don't even know what that means.
Neither do I, man.
So then people called me on my bluff. They're like, "Hey, Maddox, are you really going to go on a hand kissing tour?" I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, I will. And I went out and I bought a cape and a crown, and I actually did that as a part of my first book tour.
Mm-hmm. So
that was like a really fun thing, and I really like people to think of me as virtuous. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with that?
Well, so in this case, is it signaling if it's real, right? Like okay. I think what's interesting about the Me Too movement thing. So you say you're a feminist, but meanwhile you sexually harass women in your private life. You're not a feminist. You're signaling that you are, and so evolutionarily, signaling is how you're supposed to signal to a mate that you have the right qualities, right? And so oftentimes what happens is that these sort of things we see are supposed to be shortcuts, like, oh, if you have good skin, it means you're healthy, or if you're strong, it means you're, sort of physically vigorous, or if you have money, it must mean you're clever and powerful and all these things, right? And so what I think has happened is that, there's that saying like, the tail wagging the dog. Yeah. That the signaling has taken over the actual things, right? So, like today in LA, it took me a long time to get here because there's like an anti-gun march.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which in theory is awesome. I have, even though I'm sort of very pro Second Amendment, I have a concealed carry license. Like I live in Texas. I'm generally pro gun. I think our gun laws in this country are insane. However, so I'm pro the thing, but how many of the people are going to the event not because they think it will make a difference, but because if they don't go, it won't show how great they are, and if they don't go, they can't take pictures of it and put it on Instagram. So it's this sort of hashtag virtue signaling.
It's great content, like great content,
of course, versus actually giving the money or using your platform or influence in some way that might actually bring about change or a result.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so that version of virtue signaling, especially with these male feminists online, that's always a fucking red flag. Anytime some guy's like, thou doth protest too much.
Right.
You're going out there and making sure everybody knows they're feminist. Almost every time one of these really outspoken guys, eventually they get nipped because who was that guy? Garcetti, something like that. He was a writer. The very first episode of this show, I talked about him because he wrote this huge virtue signaling article about the female Ghostbusters. It's like, oh, we need a female Ghostbusters, this and that. Always wrote like, left of center, very feminist positive articles and things like that. But then he got busted for sexual harassment. One of the producers at Defy Media got nabbed for this.
Yeah, he did. He was doing some weird ass shit.
Yeah, some weird stuff.
I mean, let's be clear. Everything changed after the new Ghostbusters came out.
That's true.
The world changed.
Thank you, Taylor. That was the cultural milestone that changed everything. That's what bore the Me Too movement.
So if you're thinking about even that Ghostbusters thing, which it was so weird that people had such strong opinions about it. It's like, who gives a shit? I don't care about Ghostbusters.
Way stronger opinions about Ghostbusters than like most wars were involved in.
Yeah, of course. Which again is a virtue signaling thing, right? You're trying to like people are defending it, people are mad about it because they think it's they think that it's going to say something about them or whatever. But that was interesting. It's like you could argue like the people who decide to cast a female Ghostbusters, are they doing it because those are the best people for the movie, or are they doing it because that shows they're somehow more progressive or more open-minded than other people in Hollywood. And then you would go, okay, like now there's this scandal in Hollywood that's sort of a rolling scandal of like, are women paid as much as their male counterparts? Sort of how are women treated on set, et cetera.
Right.
Was that movie set like a paragon of virtue in that sense? That would be to me, that's what matters, not like what they, the statement to do this thing. So we're often, it's like this sort of style over substance thing to me is the essence of the problem of virtue signaling.
Well, I brought in the original article that actually popularized this phrase. It was by, the guy's name is James Bartholomew, and this was published in The Spectator in the UK. And I brought a few excerpts that I want to read because he seems to think that this is not just left of center. It's actually both sides of the political aisle. He says, you can declare page 3 of The Sun was degrading and embarrassing if you are a man. This indicates that you have great respect for women. Or, on the other hand, if you're a woman, you can say, isn't Mary Beard marvelous? I guess Mary Beard is a
female historian who's actually quite wonderful.
Oh, did she show up topless in page 3 or something?
I don't believe so, no.
So she's.
I would hope not.
I misinterpreted this sentence.
I got the history of these titties.
So they're saying if you're a woman, you can say that she's marvelous to show that you are way above shallowness of mere physical appearance. Yeah. Maybe she was a babe. We'll have to look that up.
No.
No?
I mean, I've met Mary Beard before. No offense. She's a middle-aged or advanced-aged British historian.
So that's a very strange sentence.
I think they may have been criticizing her. It may have been an article that was criticizing her looks unfairly. Oh. And so it's like, how dare you? And then other people are, I don't know.
Yeah, they're saying that you're above the shallowness of physical appearance. Yeah. So I see what they're saying, yeah. And then it says, virtue signaling crosses the political divide. If you say, I hate 4x4s, this is an assertion that, unlike others, you care about the environment.
Right.
It's noticeable how often virtue signaling consists of saying you hate things. It is camouflage. The emphasis on hate distracts from the fact that you're really saying how good you are. If you were frank and said, I care about the environment more than most people do, or I care about the poor more than others, your vanity and self-aggrandizement would be obvious, as it is with Whole Foods. Anger and outrage disguise your boastfulness.
Yeah, no, it's sort of this humble bragging, right? I think by saying, I hate this, or I don't like this, or I'm outraged by this, what you're doing is signaling that you have these opinions rather than necessarily owning those opinions or saying, I think I'm better than people that do X.
Okay, well, in the instances of male feminists coming out and saying, being very virtuous, like, hey, ladies, I'm one of you, I'm an ally, wink, wink, and then going out and doing heinous shit behind closed doors. Those instances are obvious examples of why virtue signaling is bad. But what about this? Why is it bad to humble brag? Why is it bad to say, hey, I really care about the poor, but then not really give a shit, I guess, or I guess say
because what it does is it creates so like the poor actually need help. What they don't need is you to change like your Facebook photo in solidarity with them. They don't need you to sign a petition about their poverty. They need like your money, or they need your political action to resolve the problem or the conditions that are causing their problem, right? So I think what it does is it allows us to pat ourselves on the back. So I think a lot of these trends, we have this world of outrage porn, of virtue signaling, of sort of online slacktivism, and they're all sort of interrelated. And then we wonder why we have these like intractable problems that don't get resolved. It's like because we're using up all our energy on all this like online bullshit. When in reality, like political change is quite difficult, and it requires compromise, and it requires like hitching your wagon to like powerful, shitty people, like it requires like getting your hands dirty. But it's easy to tweet, you don't need an AR-15 or, like that's easy. But like coming up with a gun law that's going to preserve what's enshrined in the Constitution without pissing these people off and then could actually be viable and passed, that doesn't require signaling. It requires like compromise and action.
I get what you're saying, and I kind of agree with it. Because for me, like the whole virtue signaling, like saying something, it doesn't bother me because you're trying to do something. But I also think like if you do anything that's just online, like you don't get a pat on the back.
Okay,
like that's like a freebie.
It's the equivalent of the sort of thoughts and prayers bullshit.
Yeah, yes. You could change your profile. Good for you, but don't trick yourself into the thinking that you did anything, unless it's like donate some money. It's like, but if you really care about something, you got to do an action. You got to donate time.
Excuse me, Ron. Did you not hear?
I'm so sorry. I didn't hear, but let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, aren't you supposed to be the moderator? Aren't you?
Yeah,
you've got to respect.
Deputy moderator.
You've got to respect the buzzer more than anyone.
Yeah, deputy moderator.
Without the respect to the buzzer, we have anarchy.
Yeah, we have promotions and demotions on the show.
Sorry, there's my buzzer.
Thank you.
Virtue signaling that I respect the buzzer.
So I actually wrote about this very phenomenon in my book. I believe the chapter's Fuck Abstractions. And I talked about how much I hate abstractions, especially when it comes to problems. Like, for example, the culture of rape, right? Rape culture. It's actually a phenomenon where RAINN, the Anti-Rape and Incest Abuse Network, came out and spoke against it because they said that you're taking a concrete problem and shifting the blame onto society by making culture the culprit as opposed to the individual rapist.
Right.
So I looked at examples all across the board. Coney 2012 was a great example of virtue signaling because it was people putting bumper stickers on their car to raise awareness about a guy who's not even active in where was it, Cambodia or
sure.
Yeah, so that's an example of where it doesn't work. But there is examples, I think, of virtue signaling does work. And one example in particular is the pink equals sign. Now, that was a big campaign on Facebook where people, a few years back, I think in 2012, changed their Facebook profile pictures to a pink equality sign to signal their support of gay equality and gay marriage. And I think that campaign is a perfect example of virtue signaling working because...
So you think the Supreme Court justices, when they're trying that case, were like, how many Facebook pictures have been changed here? The acceptance of gay marriage across this country was a result of a certain number of Supreme Court justices voting on a case more than another set of Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, but don't you think that
was
culture has like, something like that is a very public expression that the culture became okay with the idea of gay marriage? Not saying that influenced the Supreme Court justices,
but the reason the Supreme Court justices even saw the case is that a number of pro bono attorneys, I'm forgetting, was it Oberfell or something? The woman who's willing to like be the representative in this case, like that is why the change came about. I would say that the pink equal sign has nothing to do with it. What I would say, if I was arguing against myself,
that's the straw man argument sound.
No, because this is the steel man argument sound.
Let's hear it.
Because the good example is the ice bucket challenge, which I thought was fucking stupid and lame.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are people wasting their time? But it actually was raising tons of money. And didn't they like cure ALS from not cure, but there was some major scientific breakthrough as a result of it. So I'm not saying that it's never without value, but I think we've come to embrace the superficial side over the sort of nuts and bolts work of these things.
Well, I'll agree with that, especially the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Now, people came up to me constantly when that was going on. They're like, Maddox, you got to shit on this thing. And I really wanted to because it was super annoying. But then I looked at it, and they really were raising a lot of money for ALS. And I'm like, guys, their goals are in line with their statements, right? So how can I impugn this movement that's actually accomplishing what it set out to do?
Yeah.
As annoying as it was, they actually did it, and, good for them. They actually did raise a lot of money for ALS. Now, the argument could be made that it was sometimes at the expense of other charities and things that are more pressing, like cancer and heart disease.
Yeah.
But regardless, they still accomplished their goals. But back to the pink equality sign thing, and why I think that was a straw man argument, is because I think that our laws, for the large part, reflect the culture and society we live in. And I think that may have been the tipping point in our culture and society where people were like, okay, this is kind of crazy that we still don't have marriage equality for gays. And I think that maybe that signaling on Facebook may have tipped the scale in favor of gay marriage. What do you think about that, Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think about that?
Wrong!
No, I mean, I would imagine that the lawyers who donated, millions and millions of dollars of their legal fees to argue that case in front of the Supreme Court would take umbrage with your characterization that the random person changing their Facebook photo was the key player in bringing about that.
I don't know, man. I bet you they all have Facebook profiles. They're all
and
scrolling.
I bet they didn't change them because they were too busy preparing legal briefs.
But I think the challenge with sorry, I don't want to step out of turn.
Yeah, respect the buzzer.
Thank you. I think the problem is it's kind of like it's a weird debate to have because you're basically saying like, oh, well, that's not authentic. And it's like, well, who is anyone to judge somebody else for what they believe? Because there are people who would probably do things and really believe in it. And like I never like went to a protest before. And I went to the women's protest last March right after Trump got elected.
Yeah.
And
I went
everything is better now. You solved it.
No,
but that's solved it.
But that's the thing is like, so is that what the point is like I'm more, I don't know, I guess I care more about stuff now. I read more about it.
More
like
woke.
I'm woke as fuck.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's obviously nothing is going to change immediately, but you do make more people aware, like people are making the effort. Like, isn't that important rather than just by this results only? You have people who are like just trying to nudge the ball
they're
down
not.
the
But
path.
I mean, I think that is like the essential problem of our sort of internet culture is that we think that awareness is like the main. Everyone knows we have a gun control problem in this country. Like, no one's like, oh, what are these guns you're talking
But
about?
there's a
Like,
process you have to go through. Like, first, the people who before we could get to action, like you have to have awareness first. You have to have debate. You have to, for people who are coming at it from like, I don't know anything about guns.
It's like, I think what we have this sort of superficial understanding of history, right? So it's like, we're like, oh, they marched a lot during the civil rights movement. So we just need like marches. But it's like they were marching for... Martin Luther King wasn't like, let's just march generally for black people. No, he's like, look, we're boycotting the buses in Montgomery, and we're not going to ride this fucking bus until you stop segregating them. And by the way, we'll turn this entire town into fucking mayhem until you give us what we want, right? Or we're going to come in, we're just going to sit at your lunch counter, and you're not going to have any business, and we're not going to leave until that happens, right? These are very specific things. I think Martin Luther King would have probably been like, you're just marching generally for women, like just for women in general. You're not going to ask for a specific thing. You have no sort of legislative component to this. You have no connection
with the process that they're choosing to do. And I think over time there probably will be very specific, actionable things that people will get behind.
Well, let me. I actually wrote about this as well. The fuck raising awareness, and I'll tell you why it's a problem. Raising awareness is because there is something
which you are raising awareness about.
Well, that's true,
more
but
people
it's not
do
always...
need to know about it.
More people should know about the fact that more people shouldn't know about facts.
Yeah. So the problem with raising awareness is there's a social phenomenon called the bystander effect. And that's where, I think in the 1970s, there was a woman who was brutally murdered in New York. And it turns out there were 14 witnesses to this act. And everyone heard her screaming. Everyone heard her crying for help. Everyone heard her getting killed. And no one called 911. And the reason is because everyone else thought someone else would. So everyone just kind of took a hands-off approach. So sometimes raising awareness about a problem could cause a large mass-scale bystander effect where everyone thinks, well, it's a problem and we've raised enough awareness, so someone's going to do something. But at the end of the day, oftentimes, nobody does.
And I just wanted to contribute. One of the things we were talking about before was virtue signaling equaling good. His latest book was Fuck Whales, and 150 whales in Australia were just beached and died.
That's correct. I covered that on my news story just recently on a lighter note. Really dumb, these whales. Like, and people are like, oh, whales are so smart. They can't even, they run into boats all the time. And people are like, well, boats are going fast. I'm like, it was like a barge. And then they're like, well, but they're still moving in water.
Man,
like, well,
it's just like when a dude's walking down the street and expects everyone to get out of his way. That's what
me.
the whale's thinking.
Yeah.
The whale's thinking like, my ocean, you're a guest here.
Mm-hmm.
You get out of the way.
Yeah.
And then he just,
That's swole signaling.
So Maddox started a movement here.
Whales
are dying like crazy, and it's all thanks to you. No, I agree. I think generally the problem with this awareness culture is that we think, like, look, I'm helping raise awareness. Someone else will do something once they've been made aware.
The bystander effect, right?
Yeah. And I'm not sure that that's true. It's like, look, that's great if you marched in the Women's March, and then you're going to run for mayor of your small town later, or city council, or something like. I think just the idea of being woke. It's like woke should be a means to an end, not an end state, right? And so I think we follow the news more than we need to. We have more opinions about the news than we need to, and then it's like, but then some magical better person, they're going to run for office, or they're going to help support a candidate that needs, like, they're going to do. And then it's like, how many people watch, if you combined all the ratings of the news channels, and then you looked at how many people just voted, like the most basic political action you could take, I'm not sure they would add up. Do you know what I mean? Like more people follow the news and talk about the news and have opinions about the news than actually take action based on this information. And so to me, that's the trap of virtue signaling, is you're like, look, I already said I'm a good person. Why do I need to do the actions that make me a good person?
Yeah, that's a good point, Ryan. I guess when virtue signaling comes with inaction, that can become a problem. But I virtue what, Ron?
I just want to say that I agree a lot with what Ryan's saying, but I guess it's super annoying, man. It's super annoying when you have people who are like, you know what the real problem is? And then they have their little Facebook rant, and then they go on, and then they like walk out of the house going like, I changed the world today. It is super annoying. But I think a lot of people end there, but I think a lot of people keep going forward. You know, you do have more women running for office in this next amount of midterms than have been in a long time. So a lot of people end up just like at where you're saying. But I think a lot of people keep going forward, you know,
and those people aren't virtue signaling.
Yeah, they're just virtuous.
Yes.
They're actually being virtuous.
Yes.
Well, that's an interesting point, Ron.
But it is kind of like, you know, it is one of those things, like, I feel like up until they get there, everyone is going to be like, you're virtue signaling. And then some people are going to be like, okay, you know what? Then I'm just not going to do anything.
Look, and to argue against myself here, there's a certain amount of virtue signaling in being opposed to virtue signaling, because you're like, I don't just have my opinions. I take action on them, or I really live these things. So I get that too. And this is sort of a first world problem, I would also agree. But it is obnoxious. Like, you know, and part of what I was trying to write about in Conspiracy is not that like Peter Thiel should have destroyed Gawker, although I have opinions about that. It was like, here's this guy, and he put his money where his mouth was at considerable sort of personal risk, and he felt like he made the world a better place for it. And again, you can totally disagree whether the world is a better place as a result, but like there's a lot of rich people that don't do that, right? And I don't know. I was just inspired by someone willing to get their hands dirty and make change in a way that everyone else thought you couldn't make change.
So that's interesting. Ron.
Just a real quick, another first world problem, putting on a duvet cover by yourself.
What's a duvet cover?
Oh my God, Ryan, I weep for your sheets. A duvet cover is something you put on outside of a comforter. So
why not just call it a comforter cover? That's what I call it.
Yeah,
because
CC.
we don't live underneath a bridge, Ryan. And yes, I am virtue signaling that I don't live underneath a bridge.
Right. So you call your comforter a duvet.
Obviously. My God.
Why?
So anyway, I don't have
sheets on my cover. Because that's the name of it. Why do you call your automobile a car?
Right. I call it a car, not an automobile.
Yeah.
And that's what
exactly, because it's shorter. Duvet is shorter than comforter.
Word. Yeah, you're not
You
French,
may have
Ron.
all day to spend pronouncing syllables, but some of us, time is money. It's a duvet.
This is dumb. Move on.
Yeah, well, hold on. We got to talk about this for a second, because if time is money, you care about your time.
I will go to my goddamn
money
grave defending this.
Why the fuck are there silent letters in that word? Duvet.
What?
There's a silent T in duvet, isn't there? D-U-V-E-T? Is that how it's spelled?
Very
Taylor?
inefficient. Very inefficient.
Yeah, very inefficient. Ron, for somebody who's all about
Confirm there
efficiency.
is a T.
There is a T, that's right.
Yeah, of course. Everybody knows there's a T in duvet.
Yeah, why are you using words with silent letters? That's sneaky as shit.
No,
Talk about
man,
conspiracy.
it's called being French and cultured and shit.
Yeah, you're not French.
I know. But
When's the last time you had a croissant?
Oh my God. Oh shit. Oh, like 6 months ago.
I had one the other day, an egg sandwich croissant, and they're delightful.
Yeah, of course they are. What is that? Was like illuminating to you?
There's fucking virtue signaling. So virtue signaling, Ryan. You know.
Yeah, I'll say this: eggs on bagels. Some bagels, a little overrated. You know the bagels that look like the skin's almost like a basketball, like they're too shiny. I don't like shiny bagels
because they're too chewy, and when you bite into them, it squirts the fucking egg out all over your date's face.
Well, great, another Maddox date. Let's go out for egg sandwiches.
Burger King? Where the fuck did you get an egg croissant?
Yeah, let's go get egg bagel sandwiches and make out.
Just that they have it at nice higher end coffee shops. Why don't you fucking Luddites step up your game a little bit? I don't even know if that's the right word, but anyway, Ryan, what I thought was interesting. Back to I want to talk about your book a little bit too. In Conspiracy, you kind of made the case that sometimes conspiracy we may need more of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, conspiracy is a neutral word, right? I mean, it's just a word. So you could use it for, you could conspire to do something good, you could conspire to do something bad. And so again, maybe we need less virtue signaling and more people sort of working in secret to bring about the change that they want to see in the world.
But how do we know they're working at it? It's a secret.
Results, man. Results are what matter.
Well, we see results every day, but we don't know the cause of those results. Like, for example, 9/11 happened. Some people think that was a government conspiracy as opposed to a radical Islamic conspiracy. And
those people are dumb, though.
Yeah. Well,
right. So, like, basically his point is, like, you just want good things to happen. You just
virtue signaling
happen.
Virtue signaling, Ryan. You just want good things to happen, not bad.
You piece of shit.
I hope no one talks and just good things happen. The world just gets better.
The thing with conspiracy theorists is they have such a they must think everyone is so much more organized than we really are.
Right.
Like
so
my local breakfast place can't even handle brunch. And all of a sudden there's these huge governmental conspiracies. Like, it just doesn't add up.
There's been some interesting research on conspiracy theories where basically, like, people who believe in conspiracy theories tend to have many of the traits. Like, they're basically saying, like, oh, if you believe 9/11 was an inside job, you're basically like, oh, if I was president, I would do something really shitty if I thought I could get away with it, right? Like, you're revealing that you have sort of manipulative, deceitful, or like sociopathic traits.
Interesting.
So Alex Jones, you would never want to be your boss.
Right.
Because he would probably not be good to you.
And recently that story came out where he was just calling one of his interns Jew boy or something like that. He just kept saying, hey, give it to the Jew.
Yeah, I believe he preferred to be called Jew man.
Jew man, yeah. It was very offensive.
Well, conspiracy theorists are hilarious because, like, we're now living in this world where, like, there's very substantive evidence that, like, Russia may have interfered in our election, right?
Yeah.
But, like, the conspiracy theorists, they don't believe that, but it's somehow more. But, like, aliens causing the Spanish influenza is, like, more likely to them than, like, this trove of evidence.
Yeah.
They're like, but that disagrees with my current political beliefs, so I'm just going to ignore that one, and I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on Area 51 or something.
But in a way, it's easy because if you just say, well, that's just a conspiracy, like, you take all the thought or challenging any of the logic and you just put it in that bucket of just like, well, it's a conspiracy, and that explains everything. So it's a way for you to decide something very quickly and very easily, just to dismiss something because it's a conspiracy.
There's a certain amount of virtue signaling in calling something a conspiracy theory rather than arguing about how it's obviously not true.
Well, also it's comforting to think that bad things happen because there are rich and powerful people, or sometimes just powerful people, who are in control of them. So you can kind of resign yourself to a state of helplessness. Like, nobody wants to... If there's a building that is hopelessly on fire, it's kind of, in a weird way...
reassuring?
Yeah, it's a little bit reassuring because then you know that you're not responsible for doing anything about it. And you're not... Nobody expects you to do anything. Right. Nobody expects you to run into a building that is hopelessly on fire.
Right.
Whereas a building that's a little bit on fire, it's like, oh, now I got to do something.
Yes.
And by the way, here's where I actually genuinely am for virtue signaling in some instances, and I'll tell you how. When this pisses me off, anytime somebody does something heroic, like, for example, there's that guy about 10 years ago, somebody fell into the subway in New York and started having a seizure, and some man selflessly threw himself on top of him and kept him protected as the train ran overhead.
Yeah,
right?
I remember this.
And then he came out, and the first fucking thing he said is like, I'm not a hero. You know what? Fuck you. You are a hero. Just fucking own. Why do you have to have this air of humility in addition to heroism? Why can't you just own the fact that you're fucking...
Because if he said, I'm a hero, people would be like, fuck that guy.
No, that's going to be me, Ron, because when I do something fucking heroic, which is like probably tomorrow, I'm going to come out and I'm going to do fucking every news show. I'm going to go on Ellen. I'm going to tell Ellen I'm a hero. I'm going to come out with my fucking cape.
The only heroic thing you do is like when you choose a salad at lunch over wings. Then it's like, all right, I'm a hero. I made a good choice.
I only if people can hear me ordering it. I want people to know I'm choosing a healthy option.
No, I agree. I think we aren't honest about things, right? Like, you could argue that that's a form of not dishonesty, but it's a sort of a forced humility because, like, you're going to get in trouble if you own what you do or what your pure motivations are. You
can't just be a hero. You have to be a hero, and you also have to have this air of humility about you.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. And I think that's even a worse thing than, like, being not humble is worse than being...
Fake humble?
Fake, deceitful, because you're essentially lying to people by saying you are not a hero, when in all by all measures, you are.
I mean, that's my point. It's like, okay, look, if you want to drive like a big truck because you like big trucks, you should be able to say like, I like trucks. You shouldn't have to drive a Prius because you feel like you're going to get, sneering looks from your neighbor.
Yeah, and also this can be applied in the pot world, like people who are pro legalization, which by the way, it's almost like irrelevant at this point since most people seem to be. But when it wasn't, especially in the early 2000s, people were coming out with all sorts of bullshit reasons for why we should legalize medical marijuana for medical reasons.
Right.
And that was their cause. But they didn't come out and just simply say, I just like to smoke.
Right. I like to smoke pot. It's weird that the government says I can't do this relatively harmless thing. Why are we still talking about this? Instead, we have to go, but what about a 93-year-old woman who has cancer and she's in so much pain? Shouldn't she be able to smoke pot? And so we're having a fake debate. We're not having a real debate about why we want this thing.
I'm kind of down the center on the pot thing, and this kind of drives some of my friends nuts because I was actually opposed to legalization up until I did hear about my friend's mom who was like 60-something. She got knee surgery, and that was the only thing that took her pain away. And then that brought me more towards the center where I was like, okay, maybe I'm a toss-up.
Yeah.
But why I'm still a toss-up is because we still don't have ways to test that in your system. So people driving around high, which can exhibit symptoms such as like similar to alcoholism or to being drunk.
Oh, the impairment is similar.
The impairment, yes.
Yeah.
So we don't have a way to test that consistently. And so if people get pulled over and if they cause a huge accident and that was the cause, we should probably know that. So,
right.
So virtue signaling. Ryan, any last words on virtue signaling?
No, I don't think so.
I haven't. I did want to.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody go, hey, any last words? Nah, I'm cool. I'm good. I said my piece.
I said everything I needed to. Well, I brought in this one last piece from The Guardian I want to talk about. It's an article that came out in 2016 called Virtue Signaling, the put-down that has passed its sell-by date.
Okay.
And they're saying it's a phrase popularized by James Bartholomew in 2015.
And remember, you said you had no more words.
Yeah,
no more words.
Can't say a damn thing.
I've ceded the floor.
Virtue signaling is making a statement because you reckon it will garner approval, rather than because you actually believe it. It's a form of vanity, all the worse because it's dressed up as selfless conviction. Now, I do agree with that last statement, but the virtue signaling, I think people these days who criticize others for virtue signaling are, like you said, Ryan, themselves virtue signaling.
Yes.
It's a word that has become so toxic that even using that word is virtue signaling.
There's an element of fake news to it, right? So it's like now, wait, everyone can just call anything they don't like fake news.
Yeah,
that's not great,
right?
But I think the general sort of I'm more referring to its effects on sort of this creating this kind of apathy and self-congratulation despite that apathy. That's my problem with it. I'm not just sort of going around being like, you're virtue signaling. You're virtue signaling. I don't know. Who has the fucking time?
Twitter. Everyone on Twitter, apparently.
Right.
Everyone on Twitter, everyone on Facebook. Just a lot of fucking time on their hands.
Well, I mean, like when I pull up the sort of the stat, you go to Twitter and there's like the trending topics.
Right.
If you want to see a good example of virtue signaling, click any one of those political topics and you'll see mostly sort of liberal reporters competing to see who can have like the most virtue signaling response to whatever that news, like, how could Trump say this? I'm outraged. It's just sort of this, nauseating amount of just sanctimonious bullshit that they can't possibly care about. They're doing it because this is their job.
I agree with that, and especially these days with headlines that tell you to stop doing something.
Yes.
And anytime I fucking see that shit, I immediately go to a 10 on my fury scale because it's just finger wagging. Some dipshit is trying to set the etiquette for culture, and they come from no position of authority. They don't have even enough life experience to tell anyone to do anything. Yet here they are writing this fucking think piece that gets picked up by BuzzFeed, and then that's the end of that. Anyway, virtue signaling, guys. Don't forget to vote on madcastmedia.com. I want to see what you guys think about this. I know it's a difficult position to take that virtue signaling is okay, but I am a virtue signaler. If I do something heroic, you're going to fucking hear about it.
Then it's not virtue signaling. That's the whole point.
You think that's not virtue signaling? I am literally signaling my virtues.
Virtue signaling as a pejorative is implying that you are signaling. It's like It's like a pickup artist going into a bar trying to seem more interested, like sort of, oh, women are interested in this and this, so that's what I'm going to pretend to be.
Peacocking.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Virtue signaling is peacocking.
Is peacocking of virtues. Holy
Yes.
shit. Whoops.
Like your computer just farted.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, vote on this at madcastmedia.com. I'm curious to see what you guys think. But I have a recap of last week's debate. Ryan, last week we debated how long you should date someone hot but crazy. What do you think?
I don't know.
You have any
Not
thoughts
very
on that?
long.
Not very long. Right? My answer was 0. But Ron said 1 month. I believe you changed it to 1 month.
I started in the beginning. I was like, "What for a long time?" And then I changed it. I think I went to 1 month because you know what? Everybody deserves a chance.
Yeah. Well, I disagree. And therapist Kelly said 2 dates, and Dreadmere said as long as it's fun. Coming in dead last was 0. My answer. You guys are all fucking idiots. Enjoy your crazy, you morons. Desperate. That's all it is. It's desperate. It's desperation. It's like, oh, please.
You really came in dead last?
Oh, please give me that pussy. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, dead last. 0 amount of time, and then followed by 1 month. That's you, Ron. Take that. And then
this is not last.
Yeah, and then 2 dates came in second place, but the number one answer was as long as it's fun by Dreadmere.
But that's kind of a deceiving answer because that could be 0. That could be 1 month. You're basically not having. That answer is I'm not going to pick a number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all
but
of the above.
That's why it was flexible.
Yeah,
you know?
Flexible.
Let the voter know let the voter
Why not
decide.
just go until it turns out they're crazy? I mean, you're not answering the question.
Yeah, good point, Ryan. Next time Dreadmere's on the show, I'm going to bring it up and throw that in his face.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll love that.
Yeah, you know what? That we're gonna
Hey, remember that
invalidate
thing you
this.
said 6 months ago? Well, guess what? I have a comeback for it.
We're going to invalidate this win. Sorry, disqualified. So second place wins, which is 2 dates. Oh, that's still not me. Anyway, we've got some voicemail. We got a bunch of voicemail this week. A lot of really good stuff and a lot of shit too. But here's some words of wisdom from the bad hombre. Listen to this.
Hey, well, what's up, cabrones? You motherfuckers out there who are fucking the crazy bitches out there, man, you gotta be extra careful with them. This is my experience that those ladies that are the craziest are also the most fertile. And you don't want to be roped up with somebody for 18 years that's crazy out of their fucking mind, so watch out where you put your dick there, man.
This guy should be on a bumper sticker. Watch out where you put your dick, man.
And it sounds like he's speaking from a lot of personal experience, like 18 years, man.
Yeah.
That's the bad hombre, regular caller into the show. Here's another caller. The weird Matthew McConaughey had some thoughts on dating crazy. Listen to this.
You know what's a sign of crazy? Every time the chick calls you and doesn't get a hold of you, she not only leaves a voicemail, but she marks that voicemail as urgent.
Yeah, that's.
How do
that's a
you
good
do
point.
that? Is
Mark
that
a
a
voice.
thing?
Yeah, I guess there's a way to mark a voicemail as urgent.
Which is obviously gets to you much more quickly than a normal voicemail.
I'm not sure that's a feature. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
It's a feature. I remember like if you listen to the end and you'd be like, would you like to mark this voicemail as urgent? Press 1.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it takes longer to deliver the voicemail when you have to wait to mark it as urgent.
Yeah. If it's so urgent, you have to sit there and listen to another voice prompt. And by the way,
if it's urgent, then when you get the voicemail, like this voicemail is marked urgent. It's like, well, that's taking longer to get to the voicemail.
Yeah, just get me the voicemail. Because if I hear you tell me it's urgent, I'm not going to get any information that I wouldn't get from hearing the actual voicemail.
Yeah, it's a completely unnecessary.
Yeah, you could actually just say in your voicemail, "This is urgent." I guess it was from a time when people got so much voicemail that they looked at it visually. You know that fucking visual voicemail bullshit.
Oh,
maybe that's what it is. Like, oh shit, I got 20 voicemails.
This was around before that though.
Yeah, was it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's garbage. Anyone who leaves voicemail, by the way, I never listen to voicemail anymore. Don't care who leaves it. Don't care what it says, because I know it says the same thing every single time. Hey, I'm trying to get a hold of you. Couldn't do it. And I know that. I know that because I see a missed call. It's the same exact fucking message.
Yeah, it's never like, hey, your dad's dead.
No.
Later.
No. Although I did get a call like that one day. Oh man, this is a whole fucking story from one of my aunts. My dad wasn't dead, by the way, but I found out. I thought he was for about 4 hours of my life.
Oh, Jesus!
It was awful. I'll tell you that story some other time. It's a long one.
Was the voicemail marked urgent?
It was not, but it was
It was
actually
marked dead on delivery.
Oh gosh.
DOD.
Terrible.
Why do you get more sound effects than the guest?
Yeah, I don't know. I just do. I'm the host of the show. That's what I do. That's what I do, Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
We get what do we get? Like, there's our sound effect.
We get buzzer guest 1, buzzer guest 2.
Wrong and triggered. That's it.
You know what's interesting though? You guys have sound effects that I don't. I don't have wrong. I do have triggered. That's about it.
Whose voice is that, by the way?
It's
great.
Yeah, that's a custom voice. We actually recorded for the show. So here's a voicemail about. I was trying to remember that woman from the late '80s, early '90s who made all the colorful trapper keepers. It was Lisa Frank.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Lisa Frank.
I
kept saying like Anne Frank. I'm like Anne Frank. Anne Frank's trapper.
Her trapper keepers were not colorful at all.
No,
they were very sad,
very drab. Did not sell very well.
Yeah, although they closed very softly.
Oof.
Didn't make any noise.
No. But anyway, Lisa Frank was who I was trying to remember because she has crazy eyes. If you guys don't know what Lisa Frank looks like, Google it. She has the craziest eyes you've ever seen. Here's a voicemail about that. Listen to this.
Holy shit, Madcast, you weren't kidding. Lisa Frank has crazy fucking eyes. Love show.
Yeah, man, Lisa Frank. There's like no picture of her that doesn't have crazy eyes. Check that shit out. Of course, if you're making a bunch of hallucinogenic colored trapper keepers for a living, yeah, something's probably a little bit off with you. All right, here's another voicemail. This guy. So last week I talked about a tell for crazy, right? It's people who don't like things they've never tried.
Okay.
And I think that's a tell.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right. Here's a caller about that. Listen to this.
You fucking guys listening to the podcast and you guys keep talking about how can you dislike something you've never tried. You ever tried shit? Yeah, pretty sure you're not going to like that. Fucking idiots.
Yeah, we're the fucking idiots. You can't even pause the podcast to call into the show. You can
Wait,
hear
so
us
that's
talking.
a tell of crazy people?
Yeah, people who don't.
Oh, who
dislike things they've never tried.
You got us. We forgot to say except shit.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Except. By the way, you know what shit tastes like because you can smell it. It's not going to be too different.
Also, it's not that bad. It's whatever.
Well, here's what I think about that guy.
Douchebag of the week.
Yeah, douchebag of the week. You don't need to try certain things that you know how it's gonna be, like breaking your arm. Don't need to fucking try it. I know it's painful.
Yeah, we're talking about fucking green peppers.
Yeah,
you know, something like that.
Food, movies, experiences, roller coasters, shit like that. Oh,
yeah.
I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of. Wait, who the fuck is afraid of heights? Who gives a shit? Sweet mercy, it delivers you from this fucking bullshit we're on. I went skydiving, no joke, true story. And on the plane ride up, I was cool as a cucumber. Didn't feel not even a thing, except for, and this is the only time you feel anything when you go skydiving. Have you been skydiving, Ryan?
No.
It's great.
I'll never will.
You're afraid of heights?
I don't like I don't like the feeling of terror. Why would I seek it out?
It's not terror though, because your mind can't process
You were
a
just
height.
telling us about the feeling of terror that you got while you went skydiving.
No, I didn't. The only time you feel anything when you go skydiving is the moment you fall out of the plane and you just get a little bit of butterflies. I'll tell you what's an infinitely scarier feeling is when you're tipping back in your chair.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And that moment where you flip and you know you're falling, that is infinitely scarier than skydiving because your body, your mind knows how to process that height and you felt that pain before. But when you're jumping towards the earth from 14,000 feet, it looks like you're jumping towards a map. Your mind can't even begin to process what that pain could even feel like.
I did this thing. You want to go?
No, actually, after you.
I did this thing at a military base once where I gave a talk and they had us do like the thing where you practice jumping out of a plane. Mm-hmm. Like you jump and you're like hooked up to this wire. And it's at exactly, they said it was actually, to go to your point, they said it was much scarier than skydiving because it was like they set up the tower at exactly the height where you know you'll die if you fell.
Wow.
Right?
Whoa.
So like, it was, like 29.5 feet or whatever it is, right? So it's like you're looking out of a 1-story window, you're like, okay, you're looking out of a 2-story window, you're like, probably don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. You're looking out of a 3-story window, you're like, nope, and it was like right at that, and that was a super scary feeling.
That does seem like it would be
because you have to jump.
Yeah.
And you can see the ground.
And you know what a fall like that would do to you.
Yes.
But if you fall out of an airplane at 14,000 feet, by the way, your body adjusts to that gravity very quickly. You don't feel the pull of gravity anymore. You're just feeling wind.
And I thought the first time, I thought the first time you don't jump, Like, doesn't the guy jump? Aren't you strapped to some guy?
You're going.
So you're not even doing it, right? Like,
it's still falling out of a plane, right?
No, but you're not jumping, so that probably reduces the terror of it as well, right?
I believe I went out first.
Again,
what?
I am disagreeing with everything you guys are saying.
Okay.
First of all, I went skydiving in South Africa, where it's a little different when it comes to safety, where there is no training. You just go with a guy named Greg, and then when you ask him, "Hey man, shouldn't you be telling me anything?" He removes the apple from his mouth and says, "Can't you see that I'm eating?" And then you go up in the plane with Greg, and then you turn to him and go, "Hey man, are you gonna tell me anything?" And he's like, "God, yeah, you're fine, dude. It's fine. I'll be with you the whole time." And then he opens the door, and you scream like a little girl, and he goes, "We're gonna count on the count of 3," and he goes, 1, 2, and then he jumps out of the plane. And then you're falling, and it's like, yeah, it's fun for 30 seconds. It is honestly one of the thrills of your life. And it is a feeling of terror, and adrenaline, but you feel safe because you're with Greg. But then when he pulls the chute, your body's going 180 miles an hour, but your chute all of a sudden goes the other way to slow you down. And you're in a harness inside that, so your balls separate from your body. And for the next 15 minutes, you're just hanging in the air with really tight, sore balls. And you just keep, and then they hurt for a day, and that costs $200.
That doesn't sound fun at all. It sounds real shitty.
I went once, and I'm like, okay, I don't know why people want to do this. 30 seconds, the best. That 15 minutes while you're coming down to the ground, it hurts your dick.
I don't know, man. I was going to talk about that,
Unless you have a super tiny dick.
No.
Hey, Maddox, how'd you feel?
No. But you know what?
I don't need to
Maddox has a very large penis.
Yeah, very large. Thank you, Taylor. Taylor's been kicking it under the table.
Oh my god! I thought I was stepping on a cable. Jesus, look at that thing.
It is a cable.
What do you do? Is that why you never wear shorts?
That's right.
Because you always have to wrap it around your leg like a weird garden hose.
My pants are shorts.
Oh, Jesus.
Always tripping over myself. Yeah, but
that's why you never ride a bike, because it gets caught up in the chain.
Always ride bikes, but it's just very chafed on one side. One other thing I was going to say, the scariest thing about skydiving is the training video right before that I saw, because it's this guy, you turn on the training video, he's wearing a camouflage leather hat, and he's got a ZZ Top beard, and he's like, I forget his name, I think it's Milo or something. He goes, "Hello, my name is Milo." And he's the guy, this is the man who invented most of the skydiving gear. And I'm thinking back to the first person who ever skydived, and I'm like, oh my God, of course he had to have been out of his fucking mind. And it was this guy. And he's sitting there telling you about the skydiving gear. He's like, yeah, I invented all of it. I'm like, of course this guy did. There's no government regulation. There's no anything. This guy just kind of experimented and figured it out. And he's like, okay, whose technology is saving your life.
Did he have crazy eyes?
He had crazy everything. Yeah, he was he was definitely up there. All right, we got one last voicemail. This is from, I think, the Real Christian Atheist. Listen to this.
Hey, Lord Maddox, it's me. Jesus. Okay, come on. It's like you try. Okay, we all know you're gay, right? It's been this running gag forever, and gag more way than one. But come on, you have a debate. Are traps gay? Come on, they clearly are. And
traps.
And then you always say weird things about sex, and then you're like, I wish I could date a hot manly lumberjack, but who's also a girl. Where are we supposed to go when you say these things? I don't know. You might be trolling us, but fuck whales.
Yeah, fuck whales to you too, but no. Not gay. So a trap is somebody who has sex with trans women, and the question is, are they gay?
Why are they called traps?
Well, the idea is sometimes some trans people will not disclose that they're trans until after it's too late, and then you're so-called trapped. You're trapped in the bedroom, and then you have a decision to make. Are you going to go through with it or not? So that's where I think the expression comes from. So there's it's kind of a meme on the internet where a lot of trans people have debated whether or not traps are gay, people who have sex with trans people. That was a debate we had on the show a while back. But that has nothing to do with what the call said. I was essentially saying last week that my ideal woman has the personality of a lumberjack, but is like a hot babe.
Yeah, he just wants a hot babe who can cut down a tree.
That'd be pretty cool. But also, like a wooden, stoic, right? I'd like,
sure.
Yeah. Where we walk into a crowded restaurant, someone says something stupid, I look at her, she looks at me, we don't even have to say a word. We have the conversation.
Like you guys have a baby and her bosom is full of maple syrup. Right?
That baby will grow fast.
Yeah, it's just just a baby sucking on the teat of her maple syrup growing big and strong.
I think
you're confusing lumberjacks and trees.
I mean, I want to fuck a tree. I don't know if you guys want to do that. I do.
And not even maple syrup. You're just thinking of sap.
It goes through a process.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, anyway, speaking of process, hey, we've got some serious news with our junior journalist, Taylor Nikolai. Did I pronounce it right?
You finally did.
Nikolai.
Oh, Nikolai's.
There it is. Taylor, we've got some news with Taylor. Taylor, welcome to the show as the first time doing the news. Let's see what you got.
Thank you. So our first news story. Scientists have announced a male contraceptive pill has been developed which is effective, safe, and does not harm sex drive. In what has been described as a major step forward, the drug was successfully tested on 83 men for a month for the first time. So far, efforts to create a once-daily pill to mimic the mainstream female contraceptive have stalled because men metabolize and clear out the hormones it delivers too quickly. Maddox, how many children do you think you would not have if you had this pill?
I would not have any of them. That would be great. But I don't know.
Did you just say the test ran for a month?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you need a little bit longer?
Also, more than 83 dudes. That seems like a pretty small sample size.
83 is a decent sample size. What are you talking about?
83 dudes for 1 month?
83 dudes for 1 month. Yeah, man. That
doesn't even make any sense. What if they got her pregnant on the last day? How would you know?
Also, how many times are they having sex a week? You know,
I don't like you guys' attitudes on this. This is technology. It's a breakthrough.
Hey, keep testing. I'm all for it.
You know, I think what they do, and why it's only 83 is because this is how they're probably checking. They're just probably checking sperm count. So they're bringing 83 dudes into some facility, and they're all coming in cups and just jizzing all over the place, and then they're leaving. That's a lot that they have to deal with.
How they're jizzing all over the place? You make it seem like they just go into a room and just like a sawed-off shotgun fire into the wall, and they'd be like, "See you guys next Saturday." Like, I think it's a little bit more like kosher than the way you're describing it.
Catch it with butterfly nets.
Where do you want it? How about everywhere?
They've got a doctor with a tramp stamp.
Maddox, would you take the pill?
Yeah, I think I'd take the pill. You know, as a precaution, why not? Especially if there are no side effects.
I would take the pill. I mean, I feel like
better than getting a vasectomy. Are you kidding?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I always feel a little bit of guilt that, like, if I'm with a woman who is taking pills, who has, it has side effects, I feel a little bit of guilt.
Oh, that birth control, some of that shit can lead, like, I've dated some women who were on birth control and then they got off birth control, and there was a huge change in just how they felt every day.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea how much it affected them.
It can wreak havoc, but I imagine it might do the same thing with guys. I think the only side effect that guys care about, me especially, because I'm fucking bald already, I don't give a shit about my hair, is lack of sex drive. So that's sometimes the only side effect.
Like the pill you take so that you can have sex, its only side effect is it makes you not want to have sex.
Then you have to take Viagra in addition to that.
That's the thing with women's contraceptives. A lot of times the pill makes them have less sex drive.
Yeah, and that's the rub of a lot. Yeah, you're right, Taylor.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of and maybe that's the ultimate.
That's what I like about this podcast. I learn.
Yeah, you do learn.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you, Taylor. Good story. Anything else?
A Tennessee man wrongly jailed for more than 31 years has been awarded $1 million from the state. 61-year-old Lawrence McKinney was exonerated after new DNA evidence led to his rape and burglary conviction being overturned.
The fuck?
McKinney then set out to receive the legal maximum $1 million for wrongful imprisonment, which was granted by the Tennessee Board of Claims on Wednesday. Do you think $1 million is enough?
No.
Well, I think what he got before that was $75.
What do you mean for
when he originally got out of prison after 31 years? They went, "Hey, sorry about that. Here's $75."
Holy
and
shit.
then I think that's what was the thing that's like, wait, what? And then he looked into his
options.
He's
right. $75 was the original.
$75. Which just
insane.
that almost seems that's just rude. That's like when you go into a restaurant, you give like a quarter as a tip.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like
it's worse than
it would have been better just to give nothing.
Yeah. I very rarely have done like either no tip or a bad tip. And one of the few times, this is the only time I've done it, the service was so bad, and it was just this woman. She was very belligerent. I try to always take into consideration they may have had a rough day, et cetera, et cetera. This time was just above and beyond, just the worst. Like she was actively telling us no, she wouldn't give us more water. I'm like, okay, so I left I left a 50-cent piece because I know.
Why did you have one?
I had one because I went to the fucking post office, and you know how they're always giving you goofy currency? It's like, hey, here's a dollar coin.
Yeah, they always give you like pesos back.
Yes.
I've never got a 50-cent piece at a post office before. I don't know what you're talking about.
They're always giving me goofy currency at the post office.
How much time do you spend at the post office? I don't know if
I used to do all the t-shirt fulfillment when I used to sell t-shirts on my online store, and I would ship them myself. I would ship out hundreds of packages every week. And
you don't have a guy?
I don't know. At the time, I didn't. I did eventually, yeah, but... At the time, when I first started out, it was me shipping. And it was funny because I would read these comments from people buying T-shirts and like, hey, tell Maddox he's really cool. And then I'll write back, I'll say, Maddox says thanks.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
I know. And then one guy...
Meanwhile, you got like a trash bag full of T-shirts in the line. Like a weird T-shirt hobo.
No, it was boxes, thank you. But yeah, when I first started out, I mean, it was very much, just a bootstrap operation. I literally had my ceiling in my apartment was stacked.
I remember they were here not that long ago.
Yeah. I used to ship them all myself, but no more.
You doing them in boxes?
I used to ship, because I got the T-shirts in boxes, and then I would take the T-shirts out of them, fold them, put them on racks, and then I would use those boxes to take to the post office. So it was a full, complete operation.
Well, what would you ship the T-shirts in? You ship them in like little mailer, like little plastic mailers, right?
Tyvek pouches.
Yeah, those are the, because they weigh hardly anything.
They weigh hardly anything, and they're super strong. Tyvek is an incredible product.
Okay, this is boring.
Yeah.
Next news story. Uber Technologies halted autonomous vehicle tests after one of its cars struck and killed a woman in Arizona in what is likely the first pedestrian fatality involving the technology.
Right.
A 49-year-old woman was crossing the road outside of a crosswalk when an Uber vehicle operating in autonomous mode under the supervision of a human safety driver struck her, according to the local police department.
Taylor, was supervision did it have quotes around that word in that article?
Yes, I think you're aware. The safety instructor was not paying attention.
He wasn't, or was it a she? I couldn't tell. It was like a dark, grainy video. They showed this video, and it's horrible. Don't look it up, guys. I'm going to explain it. Anytime I tell people not to look up something horrible, I do my best to explain it in great detail so they don't have to. So I'm going to do that again with this story because it's horrible. So you see the car, you see the dashboard cam, and then you also see a cam on the driver, and the driver's kind of like not paying attention, looking down, driver in quotes, looking down and occasionally glancing up, and then you see this woman pulling her bike across the road, and it's dark, and you don't see her until the last minute. I don't even know if a human driver could have seen this woman, and she was just slowly walking across the street, and it seemed like she was possibly jaywalking, and the person in the driver's seat looks up at the very last second and sees, and it looks just horrible, and then that's when the video cuts out, thankfully. It's a horrible scene, but they're already talking about regulating self-driving cars and taking them off the roads. Guys,
well, the point is Uber has already halted their autonomous testing.
It sucks. It really sucks.
And I think the argument a lot of people have had is that a real person would not have been able to stop either.
No, absolutely not. I feel like self-driving cars are going to make us all safer, and they're already talking about rolling out self-driving trucks, which I think is a fantastic idea because truck drivers are always... They're always fighting against their human limitation on being able to drive as long as possible without falling asleep. It's a serious problem, and there's always fatalities every year. What?
So here's the problem. Uber has a history of making shitty, and I took an Uber here, shitty, ethical, awful decisions, business, like from top to bottom as a business. That's not necessarily the company that I want pioneering autonomous vehicles. Like Google... previously Don't Be Evil generally has made some not so shitty decisions. It doesn't shock me that the first company that this happened to was Uber.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
The problem is that the technology we have right now just doesn't work. That's why people are freaked out about autonomous cars.
I mean, it works pretty well.
The technology
first of all,
does
work. Anyone's printer just work?
Or
all the time.
Or you call
Never have a problem with your fucking printer. And then you want me to get into a car covered in motion sensors?
Look, I know Uber
we can't even handle motion sensors in airport bathrooms.
You go, you call an Uber and it says, it'll be there in 3 minutes. I think they pick the minimum amount of time or the maximum amount of time they think you'll wait, and then they just creep it up. They're never like 17 minutes, right? And I bet that's a conscious, dishonest decision by the people at Uber because that's what they do.
The point is, we can't make a restaurant table that doesn't wobble.
It's true.
So now... we're
just
gonna
put some
napkins
car. Just put a couple napkins.
Put some napkins on front of the Uber cars. Soften the blow.
Do you fly in an airplane?
What's that?
Do you fly in an airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah, he jumps out of them, as you heard.
Sometimes they're so bad I jump out of them.
Very often those are autonomously flying most of the time.
And we've had that technology for like 30
except
years.
For takeoff and landing.
We've had that technology for like 30 years, and there's still 2 pilots in every plane.
But I think that, like, I'm all in on autonomous cars. I do believe it's going to make us safer. There's way less fatalities in autonomous cars than there are just with human-powered cars.
You're going to take away drunk drivers.
But, and I agree. But, like, the thing is, they got to meet us halfway, and, like, they're giving us all these toys. And, like, just fucking use Siri on your phone. It's until Siri's 100 goddamn %. Like, I'm not totally on board with autonomous driving cars. You got to meet us halfway. Give us the basic bitch shit. Make that work. Then I'm going to get into your car.
Boo, no. I will get into a self-driving car before they fix my fucking voice recognition shit. I don't care about that. The self-drive, by the way, the problem of not hitting things is computationally pretty simple. You just shoot out a beam and it bounces back, and you just measure the distance between you and that, and you calculate the speed that you're going and decide the stopping rate. It's a very simple thing, as opposed to recognizing
didn't work
someone's
for that woman though.
Well, no,
but there's a point where, like, if you step into something,
tell her family about that calculation. You know what I mean?
I might wait a month, a week.
You don't understand the algorithm.
It's really incredible technology.
Hey, so sorry for your loss. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you real quick.
I'll proselytize technology.
Should I wait till the service is done? Sure.
Yeah. You know what is interesting? We'll have a debate about this. Ryan, I wish you were here out here more, because I think you'd be fascinating for this debate. But I really want to talk about the algorithmic decision that these autonomous driving cars have to make on if you are in a scenario where there is a group of pedestrians.
The trolley problem.
The trolley problem. Yeah,
it's real.
Extremely utilitarian.
Yeah. How do you? What do you mean, Taylor?
In the sense of what is the greater good?
Yeah.
Do we kill the group of nuns, or do we kill the child who is in the middle of the road?
Or in this case, the driver.
But what if that child grows up to be
blow
Hitler?
The car up.
You know what?
So you gotta put that into, you know.
Well, this is gonna be a fascinating. I was gonna go down this rabbit hole, but this episode we need to wrap up, unfortunately. But Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to link to your website, ryanholiday.net/events for right if people want to see.
Yeah, or just ryanholiday.net.
Ryanholiday.net. There,
you don't have to come to the
events.
events.
That's even easier.
Yeah.
Hey, who's got ryanholiday.com?
I think it's some Christian musician.
That motherfucker.
I know.
But he is named after a holiday.
So
I'll do one of those myself.
Ryan Holidays. Christmas isn't the only thing that comes once a year.
Oh my god. oh, boo. Oh my gosh. All right. Anyway, guys, check out Conspiracy. It's a very fascinating book, very fascinating read, especially if you guys remember that. And I remember watching that Hogan sex tape too. Were you able to?
I have seen it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think my buddy Paul Sebas has a joke about how he abhors any Hulk Hogan sex tape because he knows during it he calls the woman brother. That was so great.
It was not a very flattering sex tape. I mean, there was a surprisingly good audio.
What sex tape is?
Well, it was they'd hidden a camera in the smoke detector on the wall.
Yeah. It was black and white, I remember. Anyway, guys, thank you again, Ryan Holiday, for coming on the show. Thank you to the Deputy Cadet Moderator, Ron Babcock.
Thank you.
Thank you to the junior journalist, Taylor Nikolai. But most of all, you're welcome.
Hey guys, it's Cory. Chetan Cory. So you guys mentioned drone porn. Well, good news, fellas. It already happened. Okay,
Hey.
I can't remember where exactly. Oh no, I do. I remember where I saw it. A friend sent it to me, and so these people strapped a dildo to a drone and then flew it right into the woman's pussy. It was fucking wild. Yeah, go find it somewhere, because I don't know where to find it. But yeah, it's happened. Yeah, take it easy.
Yeah.
Fuck whales.
What about the blades? Aren't you getting hit with the blades of the drone?
No, those are actually other dildos. Just spinning really fast.
Yeah, it's foolproof. Here's one more.
Hey, what's up, cabrones? This thing about the drone porn, yeah, your friends over at ETC actually reported on that one time, I remember. But yep, they got that shit, bro.
Is that just a guy doing a really racist accent?
No, it's him.
It's him?
It's the bad hombre.
like
That's
that
what he
guy.
called himself when he first called into the show. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening.
Hey there. Don't forget to subscribe to Madcast shows on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. Okay, bye. Madcast Media Network.